A moment of silence.
I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. My God! My God!
Hello, good morning. You're welcome to NEWSROOM live on GHOne TV, also on youtube.com GHOne TV/livestream, and on Facebook GHOne TV, as well as on our website, that is GHOneTV.com. My name is Abena, Owusu, Nyamekye. Here are the top stories. Several residents living in state bungalows near the GHOne factory in Kumasi complain of military brutalities. The Ghartey Committee of Parliament is expected to present its report today on the alleged bribery scandal that rocked the Appointments Committee. Also coming up, Ghana Blind Union calls for equal job opportunities for visually impaired persons. We have some business news later on, where the Ghana cedi depreciated by 5% for the month of March. And on the international front, protests at a British airport carrying Nigerian and Ghanaian deportees temporarily halted flights in the UK. Thank you for joining us. My name is Abena, Owusu, Nyamekye. Let's begin in the Ashanti region, where several residents living in state bungalows near the GHOne factory in Atunsu are living in constant fear. Some military officers are alleged to have assaulted residents and have mounted patrol in the neighborhood to terrorize them who challenge the authority.
According to the residents, the military men usually manhandles drivers and residents at the least provocation. A resident, George Spiogabra, who has lived in the state bungalows all his life, told GH1 News all records attest to the fact that they cannot be evicted by another body except the National Divestiture Board. He therefore called on the military high command to explain the reasons for the presence of the military in the area.
We happen to be residents of the premises. We have 35 bungalows here. We have the main core, and then we have the resident aspect. Now, what we understand is that from 2010 to 2011, the factory was handed over to a certain person called Dr. Karlai. Now, from what we understand is that he gave the name as GHOne Shoe Factory, instead of the GHOne previously. And then we went through some form of intimidation, because some person led the military people doing house-to-house pointing that we should, leave the premises because the military people have taken over. Okay, fine. So we don't know who mandated them to come here. So all we are fighting for is what is their presence here, and who mandated them here to come here, And under whose authority are they acting on? Between the time Thursday and Monday morning, we had military presence. As I speak to you now, they are still here.
Meanwhile, several attempts to get an official response from the Ashanti Regional Military Command has failed.
All right, so we can now speak to Isaac Bediako, our correspondent in the Ashanti region. Isaac, clearly this is a worrying situation for the residents in the Atonsu area. But tell us, do you know the number of people who have been affected by those alleged brutalities?
Well, so far, about 5 people have been affected by the brutality. But apart from that, they've been prevented from, going to their various homes with their official vehicles. Whilst commercial drivers who also parked in front of the entrance to the to the factory are sometimes assaulted. So we have some guys there who are operating a small lorry station there. They said the military men have also driven them from the entrance. So currently they are worried, they don't know what to do, and that is why they are seeking for explanation to why these military men are harassing them in the area. What I do know for now is that this morning the military men also came there with a vehicle. That's one of the bulldozers, and they are ready to start demolition exercise within the area as we speak now. So that is the situation for now.
And the military command are refusing to comment on the issue, but the residents, have they made any official complaint to the police?
Well, those who were assaulted reported the matter to the Asokwa Divisional Police Command, and they gave them extra to go for medical treatment at Confirmation Teaching Hospital. So one person has gone for medical treatment that I know for sure. But quite apart from that, I have also been doing my best to speak to the military high command. Yesterday, we spoke to the commanding officer, and he said that he's in Sunyane. His deputy, Mr. Major Susu, also I spoke with him this morning. He promised he will grant me interview later. So for now, the military, it appears they are not ready to comment on the matter.
But that Asokwa area, do they have an assemblyman or even the member of parliament? Are they aware of this issue?
Well, they said it's reported the matter. They've written a petition to the regional minister, and they expect the regional minister to speak on the matter. But they have not received any response from the minister. But this issue has been with them for years now. And one thing that I know is that the matter is even in court now, and there was a time the military officers decided to come and eject them from the area, and so they managed to secure court injunction order that restrained them from embarking on any exercise within the company. And so this comes to them as a surprise while the issue is still in court. Then the military men who come in to come and harass them. So they are very worried. That's why we're looking for explanations from the military high command.
All right, thank you very much. Isaac Bediako is our correspondent in the Ashanti region. Let's now return to Accra and take you to Parliament. As I mentioned earlier, the Ghartey committee is expected to present its report today on the bribery allegations against 3 members of Parliament and a minister. And we are speaking to Ibrahim Al-Hassan, our correspondent. Now, Ibrahim, has the report been submitted?
Well, Abena, I can tell you that the report has been laid before Parliament. However, this particular report is expected to come in the form of a motion, and that is the chairman for the committee, the 5-member committee, Ghartey, will move the motion, which will subsequently be seconded, and then other members of Parliament will be allowed to contribute in the form of a debate as far as the content of the report is concerned. So the first hurdle has been cleared up, and that is the laying of the report. So as we speak, the report has been laid before Parliament. So as I mentioned, if it's a motion and it's not coming under a certificate of urgency, then the Parliament will need 48 hours before any debate whatsoever could be taken on the motion. However, the good news is that this particular motion is coming under the certificate of urgency. So it will be moved and then adopted today, which means that members of Parliament will have the opportunity to scrutinize the content of this particular report and by extension, the public will get to know whether the allegations made against the appointment committee on one hand, and then the energy minister, on the other hand, are true or otherwise. Abena.
Have you been able to pick up any information as to what exactly this report is saying?
We've been combing the whole of Parliament, Abena, since morning. What we know is that the report is laid in storage. However, the hard copy, the paper, the content of it's not known. And that is because even Parliament is now printing these documents to be made available to members of Parliament to scrutinize or consider before the motion is moved. So, yes, we've been getting in touch with all relevant bodies and individuals to ensure that we lay our hands on a copy of this particular report. But what I can tell you is that it's now being printed. So even the Hazard Office and for that matter, Cable's Office do not have a copy of this particular document. But what we can assure viewers is that definitely we'll be bringing viewers live pictures from Parliament or when the motion is being debated. And for that matter, once the debate gets on, or the debate starts, the content of the document will be made available. Another thing that, of course, I must put across is that this is not the only thing Parliament will be doing today. As we speak, a number of budget estimates have been considered already, talking about the now National Media Commission, and a number of them will equally be considered, given the fact that Parliament is likely to adjourn tomorrow, 30th of this month, that's March. So the business of the day is quite huge, and members of Parliament are here in their numbers to consider all these before Parliament adjourns session indefinitely come tomorrow. So Ghartey, I mentioned, it's in the House already. All the other 4 members of the committee, I'm talking about the Mahama Ayariga bribery allegation against Parliament on one hand and then Bosija on the other, are in here. I've spoken to a member of the committee just before Parliament began, and he was telling me that, yes, they were locked up in a meeting because they will have to defend the content of their report. So if the content becomes public and members of Parliament get to know and they raise issues, they must be in a position of answering every single query that will come from members of Parliament. So yes, we had their own version of a meeting before the report was laid before Parliament.
All right, Ibrahim, I'm sure a lot of people are anxious to know what this report contains. We're all looking forward to that, but we can now bring you some live pictures from Parliament.
Is capable of creating jobs and open up certain sections of the country which are currently maybe not much known. Mr. Speaker, on page 5 of your committee's report, some figures have been noted, but if before page 5, on page 4, at the committee level, some of us could not understand why. We know Ghana still the railways have some rolling stocks, though they are not very effective. Nobody jumps on those trains for free. They charge some money at all costs. But so it was surprising that the IGF projection for this sector for 2017 is recording 0. We tried to find out, does that mean that we're not going to charge anybody for using the train? But unfortunately, I can't see the finance minister here to help us understand that. But I think that cannot be a true reflection, because we do pay, people who take the trains do pay some money. So there's always an income that accrue to the ministry. Mr. Speaker, I want to end by urging the House to support this, but to urge the minister that the existing project, especially the Tema to Akosombo project, which has duly been approved by this House, we urge the minister to work assiduously so that this project starts on time. We know there's a proposal to vary the project a bit to enhance its effectiveness, but this variation should not lead to any marked delay in the project, so that we can deliver this project and move beyond it. Mr. Speaker, on these few words, I urge my colleagues to support the minister and the House approve this amount of money so that we can see a marked improvement on our railway infrastructure in this country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
This is the newsroom on GHOne TV. It's live on your TV sets, also on YouTube and on our website, ghonetv.com/livestream. Hundreds of residents from New Takoradi, a fishing community in Takoradi, took to the streets this morning to demonstrate against the deplorable nature of the main road linking to the Takoradi harbour. This is the umpteenth time the residents have blocked the road. The residents burned car ties and virtually brought the community and other major economic activities in that enclave to a halt. All right, we can now bring you some more stories here on NEWSROOM. The former UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair, he was in the country yesterday. We will bring you that story shortly. But let's speak to Emmanuel Ohenijan. He is our correspondent in the Western region. Emmanuel, you mentioned that the demonstration, it has been happening over and over again. From where you sit, what is the difficulty when it comes to fixing these roads?
Well, interesting news is that currently there's a tractor and a water can on the road. The road is currently being watered, and there's a tractor on the road trying to grade the road and make it more travel. I've also seen some gravels and sand also being spread on the road. So this demonstration has actually brought something good to the people of New Takoradi. Luckily for us, we have an assembly member for Lower New Takoradi in the person of Honorable Mrs. Anatete, who is joining us on the line to tell us more about this new development. Unfortunately, she would like to speak fancy, so we may have to do with that one. Honorable, City and pay demonstration we you would City tractor by quality, which can do and the job of them.
Oh, they are trying, but they are not those who have it. On the movement man are open, you do.
So, Abena, you heard the Honorable Hanatete, who is saying that they are happy with the new development as they can see tractors working on the road to make sure that the road become more motorable. And interestingly, the bad nature of the road was actually could not. Some of the residents could not even access the only healthcare in the community, because even when you go there, the whole place is full of dust. And so it's actually a good decision that city authorities have come to the aid of the people of New Takoradi to make the road motorable.
Well, that's good news for the residents. Thank you very much. Emmanuel Ohenijan is our reporter in the Western region. Now, former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair has lauded Ghana for upholding the tenets of democracy. The former Prime Minister was responding to a barrage of questions from the media when he delivered a lecture at the Institute of Economic Affairs in Accra.
Aid is important. And as I say, when I was Prime Minister, we trebled aid. But today, you can learn the lessons of good governance from around the world. For example, if you're trying to bring in investment, you need a minimum of bureaucracy, you need transparent rules, you need to make sure that you're fighting things like corruption, you need to make sure that you're developing the infrastructure so that business can come in. These are lessons that around the world where they're applied, countries succeed. And yes, of course, you've got to open up Western markets as well. And actually, Britain, which is still part of the European Union as we speak. We have been advocating within Europe a much more open approach to African trade. So yes, of course, you need to knock down those trade barriers with the West, but by the way, you also need to knock down some of the trade barriers, tariff and non-tariff, between the neighboring countries. There's so much more that could be done in the trade that goes across this part of Africa. So all of these things, what I'm saying is, we kind of know what we should do. The challenge is doing it. And whatever sector you're talking about, industrialization, the power sector, agriculture, the great thing is to learn the best lessons from around the world, what's working, what's not, and apply those lessons.
Let's now talk about our current former president, Mahama. He has revealed that he almost quit politics to go into private business in 2008. He said he had to stay in public service because the National Democratic Congress, led by the late President Mills, won the presidential elections that year. Mr. Mahama made the revelation when he spoke at the first official reading of his book, My First Coup d'etat, at the University of Ghana yesterday.
All of Africa experienced a brain drain. a mass exodus that found many of our artists, intellectuals, professionals, and politicians living abroad in either a forced or self-imposed exile. As a result, that period of time and the direct impact it had on the cultural, educational, and political lives of those who remained has not been heavily documented, especially not from a personal perspective. There are years that are rarely discussed, years of untold difficulty and hardship, of ever-present danger and fear. There are years that many have understandably tried to forget or to erase entirely from memory. But rarely is anything all bad. There are always pockets of light, however small, to be found during periods of darkness. A number of us who stayed behind during the lost decades and lived through the difficulties, whether by choice or by force, discovered that it was ironically during this time that we found ourselves and found our voices. Different people have different opinions about Nkrumah, but I mean, certainly one thing we can't run away from is that he's the founder of our nation. He led the independence struggle. Many people contributed, and it happens in Christianity. There's John the Baptist, there's all the apostles and everybody. But who is the champion of Christianity? Jesus Christ. So we don't undermine the role other people played. Sergeant Ajete, all of them, everybody played a role. My dad and co were the organizers in the northern parts, unsung heroes, going from town to town, organizing, the people and agitating them. But you cannot recognize all those who took part. There's that person who gave the critical spark that eventually led to independence, and you cannot run away from it. It's Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
Now, President Akufo-Addo has sent a strong warning to newly sworn-in deputy regional ministers not to in any way attempt to be disloyal to their substantive regional ministers. He reminded the deputy ministers of their core duties and urged them to work assiduously to promote good governance in their respective regions.
Your first responsibility is to support the work of your regional minister. Loyalty to the minister is the fundamental premise for the success of your work. I will not countenance any acts of disloyalty or subversion of your minister, for I would take such an act as disloyalty to me personally and by reference, disloyalty to the party and to the state. Any deputy who thinks the route to advancement lies in your ability to subvert or undermine your minister will be sadly mistaken. You will not profit from that conduct in Akufo-Addo's presidency. I want you to work with your minister in all sincerity and transparency. That is the guarantee of your success and our collective success.
An assessment of Ghana's human rights performance reveals that Ghana has implemented only 30 out of the 148 recommendations outlined by the United Nations Human Rights Commission. The report, which was put together by about 70 civil society organizations in the country, evaluated 9 thematic human rights-centered areas, such as access to justice and right to life, freedom of expression, disability, right to health, social protection, among others.
A review conducted on access to justice and right to life, which encompasses conditions of the prisons, prisoners' rights, police brutality and the abolition of the death penalty, among others, all pointed to serious shortfalls in Ghana's human rights performance.
Now we need to educate the public to understand the issues relating to the death penalty. As you probably know, we haven't executed anybody since 1993. So even though the courts continue to pass the death penalty, no execution takes place. But those who are sentenced to death, they live in very horrific conditions.
The report also exposed serious human rights violations in the mining and extractive sectors, particularly on issues of inadequate compensation to individuals and communities affected by mining activities, gender disparity, control, usage and of natural resources, and called on government to strengthen its laws to cap such abuses. Respect for minority groups, including homosexuals, were also identified as a major lapse in the human rights advocacy in Ghana.
Even from the Christian perspective, where the Bible says it's an abomination, we need to be able to handle the issue with maturity, to show love, and to, if need be, try to educate them as to why you think that the behavior is unacceptable, and win them over rather than, just condemning people because they are homosexuals.
In terms of recommendations made from the UN 2012-2013 during the UPR review, we will say that most of the recommendations have not been met, and that is not good for a country like Ghana, because when you look at human rights, democracy, rule of law, Ghana stands tall or amongst the best in terms of Africa. And so if recommendations of this nature from the UN Human Rights Council has come and to some extent has not been taken seriously as a state, then it is not good.
Women participation in governance has also been earmarked for improvement in the report, as the 30% quota in governance still hangs in the balance.
The MPP manifesto, as well as our president, promised that as much as possible he will want to increase the representation of women at all levels in governance. As of now, he hasn't gotten to the 30 yet, but I'm very sure that when you consider other state agencies, the board members and the other managers, you get around the 30%.
The Ghana Civil Society Organization has recommended the following for action: the establishment of Independent Police Complaints Commission to deal with police brutalities, continue and reinforce the efforts to eliminate any form of discrimination or stigma against people living with HIV or AIDS, and commit to finding solutions to retrieve and prevent children from serving as alleged witches in witch camps, among others.
You're watching the newsroom here on GHOne TV. We've got some more stories for you after this break.
Yo, this is Skip Rich representing for Dancehall. So girl, make it down and say yo, Dancehall direct of Mr. Logics to the world. I do know why. From all of them, nobody nothing knows to me and you are Splash.
How does your first wife feel? I just keep it real.
Them all like looks too and thing, and then you vibe too.
Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short. Remember your morals and your values.
I love Mr. Logics. I don't know dancehall, do it. Keep it tuned to your ears. Mr. Logics, see there?
When we have flash. We dash water. Put it over here so we don't over the border.
Surgery demystified.
Fibroids are usually non-cancerous growths.
Now my name is Samuel Fibro. So I was rather giving them pressure to take me.
Descended testes means that the testes never descended down into the scrotum.
The most educative health show.
I'm an orthodox practitioner, and as far as we know, supported by research, there is no drug now currently in existence that will melt fibroid.
Informative and awareness of your health.
We bring the theater virtually into your home.
The OR Show, coming soon.
Yeah.
bribery and don't look at it no matter what happens.
It has begun! Enough, she died!
This is history. You just saw your lights go out. Bling! And it's bark like a dog.
Hello there, and you're most welcome to television's best experience.
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back.
This is beautiful.
Even while we sleep.
I really want you to come go with me on this exciting journey.
Say I come, that far. That bar, when they say I go, that bar, when they see me out of town, that bar, when they see me for my food,
It's fun, it's insightful, it's exclusive. This is Revealed. My name is Bolare, and this is my show.
Revealed with Bolare, proudly brought to you by Bel Air Rare Luxe. Premiere Sunday 9th April at 7:30 p.m. on GHOne TV.
You are welcome back. This is the newsroom on GHOne TV. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Several residents living in state's bungalows near the GHOne shoe factory in Kumasi complain of military brutalities. The Ghartey Committee of Parliament is expected to present its report today. We took you to Parliament. We understand that motion has been laid. Ghana Blind Union calls for equal job opportunities for visually impaired persons. Later on in business, the Ghana cedi depreciated by 5% for the month of March. And on the international front, protests at a British airport carrying Nigerian and Ghanaian deportees temporarily halted flights in the UK. The Ghana Blind Union has indicated that it has put in place measures to sensitize potential members of the union who would need placement of jobs in the various sectors. We've got this report for you.
According to Elizabeth Agbeto, though some physically challenged persons have been employed by some private sector players, the union is appealing to institutions in the public sector to do same.
Most of the employers doubt the capabilities of visually impaired persons. We have situations where visually impaired person is also a graduate, even in fact have master's degree, and then you apply for a job. The mere fact that they see that you are visually impaired, they just turn you down. Some may conclude if we employ this person, the person may not come to do anything in the establishment.
She also indicated that the Minister of Transport, in an interaction with the union, assured that 50% of toll booth stations in the country are allocated to physically challenged persons. Nonetheless, she adds that the toll booth must first be made accessible.
The Minister of Transport came to pay a working visit to us. We interacted with him, and he has assured us that the toll booths, those toll booths, he will give, as a start, he will give 50% to persons with disability. We made mention of the fact that even the toll booths are not accessible. So before they could even start employing them, they have to make sure that all the toll booths are accessible.
Mohammed Abdul Rauf, who is visually impaired, told the news team that most of them are employed mostly in the teaching and media sector. He appealed to government for support in order to create more room for them to expand their knowledge.
The government, he should give all the necessary support to persons with disability, especially with the visually impaired. To give a lot of support, more room for them to expand their knowledge. A lot of scholarships should be available for the people with disability so they can engage themselves into the education sector, so that they can also perform to help the nation in development.
According to him, getting support from government will go a long way to improve their lives and increase their confidence.
The third edition of the National Medical Excellence Awards has been launched in Accra with a call on health practitioners to develop or improve their interpersonal relations with patients. Organizers of the only award scheme for health workers in the country say although there are some exceptionally good and hard-working health service staff, there are still some more whose relations and behaviors towards patients even worsen their plight at the hospitals.
The National Medical Excellence Awards is an annual award scheme instituted to reward committed and hard-working health professionals in the dentistry, nursing, midwifery, pharmacy and diagnostic sciences. This year's awards, like previous years, will reward auxiliary staff and mortuary attendants across the country. Speaking at the launch, Director General of the International Biographical Center, Professor Asafuaje Ananifrempong, charged health workers to ensure they improve upon their working relations with patients, decrying the poor manner some healthcare professionals treat patients at the hospitals.
As a patron for the scheme, my concern will be more on interpersonal relations, our connection with the patients. This exercise is important to me because I believe our services as health workers will be much graded by the people our services are rendered to.
The founder of the Medical Excellence Awards, Dr. Dauda Amidu Titus Adandada, opined that recognizing the hard work of health professionals was critical to effective health delivery in the country. He called for more support from the government and other organizations to strengthen the scheme, since it is the only awards event for health service workers.
Yes, the selection is done in such a way that we send the criteria to all the facilities across the country. So then you look at the criteria and then the categories, and then you nominate your people that deserve to be awarded. Then when we receive the list, it is shortlisted and then given to a consultant who then goes into the facility privately to do his due diligence, whether you deserve to be awarded or you don't deserve to be awarded. Then the final list is brought up to the governing council and then the winners are announced. That's what is going to happen.
Let's talk some more about health workers. The Minister of Health, GHOne, has considered that not all agitating and posted health workers will be posted this year. According to the minister, heavy infrastructure investments in that sector by the Mahama administration has left a huge debt hanging on the neck of the new administration.
GHOne was speaking on the floor of Parliament during the approval of budget estimates for the health sector. Last week, some aggrieved members of the coalition of unposted nurses, drawn from all the 10 regions, numbering about 100, chanted different songs as they picketed at the offices of the Ministry of Health to demand immediate recruitment into the Ghana Health Service.
2015, I completed school. I'm in a house up to date. They're even thinking maybe I'll fail my course.
It has been 1 year, 4 months that we've been in the house. without posting. What have you done wrong?
I have my license to work as a full registered nurse. Look at this time now, we are still in the house. They're clear, yes. Do you want to see?
But the Minister of Health, speaking in Parliament, said unposted nurses will be attended to in batches because the investments made in the sector by the Mahama administration has plunged the sector into huge debt, making it difficult to do wholesale recruitment.
Some young nurses, both male and female, have besieged the premises of the ministry, asking to be posted to work immediately. And honestly, some have been sitting home. Some have been sitting home since 2014. Order. So I had no option than to grant them audience to cool their tempers down and assure them that when this budget is approved, there are certain provisions we have made that will satisfy them, if not fully, partially. But there are problems that have been created, and I don't think all of them can be resolved immediately. We will have to do them gradually. Mr. Speaker, I must admit that upon assuming office, I have come to realize that the previous government did a lot in the health sector by virtue of physical infrastructural investment. Some of the projects, and quite a large number of them, are still not completed.
Over the past decade, internet access in Ghana has improved thanks to the rapid growth in the mobile telecommunications sector. However, Ghana ranks 26th out of 58 countries surveyed on the 2017 Affordability Drivers Index. This is the same ranking Ghana earned in the 2015-2016 Affordability Drivers Index, indicating the slow pace of policy and regulatory progress in the country's internet connectivity.
In 2015, President John Dramani Mahama inaugurated the Eastern Corridor fiber optic backbone infrastructure project, which aims to expand internet access by deploying 800 kilometers of fiber across 120 districts and municipal assemblies. However, uptake has been slow, an issue attributed by internet service providers to high wholesale costs. It is to address these issues that the Alliance for Affordable Internet organized a workshop in Accra on Tuesday to map out strategies to enable broadband affordability to all. Minister of Communications Esla Owusu pledged to work with stakeholders to reduce internet costs as some measures to get more Ghanaians access to the internet.
All that we're doing is totally meaningless if the ordinary person cannot access the internet and take advantage of the huge opportunities out there. Because of the cost of accessing the internet, yes, everybody has some small data plan on their phone, but what do they do with it? Sending and receiving messages late last year and adopted by Cabinet. It is our duty to look at it, improve upon it if need be, and to implement it. So for starters, this year it didn't find space in the budget. We are going to set up a cybersecurity center within the ministry. We have tasked the NCA to start working on it, so they've set up a cybersecurity directorate within the NCA.
The Alliance for Affordable Internet also spoke about plans to move the country from its current 26th to 5th position in the Affordability Internet Drivers Index.
We are advocating for the removal of taxes, if possible, on phones and computers. We're also asking that infrastructure should be shared. What is shared, it means that instead of having Vodafone, MTN, Google, everybody digging, you can have one person digging and everybody sharing.
Participants at the workshop resolved that Ghana will need to update its spectrum policy and regulations to promote greater pricing transparency, competition and rapid expansion of internet services to rural areas.
We'll bring you some business stories now, and the cedi has appreciated by 5% for the month of March. This figure is 5 times more than the rate of depreciation recorded in the same period in 2016. According to the summary of economic and financial data by the Bank of Ghana, the cedi depreciated by 7.5% and 8% against the British pound and euro, respectively.
By close of day 23rd March 2017, the interbank rate for the cedi stood at 4 cedis 42 pesos for a dollar. The euro sold slightly above that at 4 cedis 76 pesos, while the British pound sold the highest at 5 cedis 52 pesos. Comparatively, in the same period last year, the interbank rate stood at 3 cedis 8 pesos for a dollar. This shows a depreciation of 0.9% then to 5% now. The cedi's depreciation has nearly doubled in the case of the euro. From a fall of 4.5%, it plunged further downward to 8%. The year-on-year performance of the cedi against the British pound was perhaps the most abysmal, as it appreciated by 1.8% in March 2016, but fell to 7.5% same period this year. The sharp depreciation of the local currency between January and February this year occurred despite the Bank of Ghana's $120 million auction for the first quarter of this year.
Now, financial analyst with Databank has said the cedi's latest trend is a sign of recovery. According to Courage Mate, he said the cedi will make better gains.
Well, I see what the cedi is going through right now as a recovery to the cedi's value, because we've always thought and believed that the sharp depreciation we saw in the cedi against the US dollar from the close of last year into early this year is actually driven by a lot of speculative movements, and the data confirmed that, you know, in the lead up to the elections, we had a lot of investors that were concerned and cautious about the elections panning out and how it may pan out. And so you necessarily will expect some investors who are risk averse to move into safe haven assets, hence the move into dollars. Now, following the elections and in early this year, we had this announcement that there were some undisclosed expenditures, and that had ramped up the fiscal deficit. Some more investors decided to move a lot more because that's a risk to the exchange rate, which can cut, you know, the returns on investment for foreign investors, and so they decided to move out significantly. Having looked at what has happened over the course of the year, especially with the presentation of the 2017 budget and the renewed commitment to fiscal consolidation, I think a lot of investors, especially the foreign investors, are buying into that outlook now and are returning and re-engaging with the economy, and we are seeing some recovery and correction in the value of the cedi against the fact that fundamentally we ran a trade surplus, and that was we imported more than we spent on we exported more than we spent on imports, and means that we have made some savings which has transferred into the reserves of foreign currency available. So fundamentally, the cedi should not have been depreciating that fast. It only meant that the speculative drivers were the ones fueling that depreciation. Once they are coming back, investors are coming back to re-engage with the country, you are seeing the cedi correcting itself to where it ought to be based on the fundamental indicators, and essentially that's it. And so we expect, from the Bank of Ghana's perspective, we expect at least for the very short term, this recovery to continue until that point where the fundamentals cannot allow further appreciation.
Let's now bring you some international news.
British police have arrested 17 people for aggravated trespass after a protest broke out at a British airport targeting a plane said to be carrying Nigerian and Ghanaian deportees to Nigeria. The protesters temporarily halted flights yesterday evening. A police statement said demonstrators at Stansted Airport, northeast of London, got onto the runway and locked themselves onto an aircraft destined for Nigeria. Videos published on the Facebook page of campaign group Stop Charter Flights and Deportations show protesters lying on the runway chanting, "We want freedom from your racist charter flights." The protest temporarily shut down operations at the airport. It is not clear if the flight was able to take off later. A statement from the South African presidency says President Jacob Zuma is not attending the funeral of anti-apartheid hero Ahmed Kathrada in compliance with the wishes of the family. Kathrada died on Tuesday morning at the age of 87. He was one of the country's most prominent figures in the struggle against apartheid and was jailed alongside Nelson Mandela in 1964. Kathrada remained active in politics throughout his life and in recent years was critical of President Zuma and called on him to resign following a scandal over improper spending at his private home. It is not clear why his family did not want the president to attend the funeral.
You're watching the newsroom here on GHOne TV. It's live on our website, ghonetv.com/livestream. Also on Facebook and YouTube. Let's recap our top stories. In the Ashanti region, several residents living in state bungalows near the GHOne shoe factory in Kumasi complain of military brutalities. The Ghartey Committee of Parliament presents its report to the Parliament today. We understand the motion has been laid. Ghana Blind Union calls for equal job opportunities for visually impaired persons. In business, the Ghana cedi depreciated by 5% for the month of March. Elsewhere, protests at a British airport carrying Nigerian and Ghanaian deportees temporarily halted flights in the UK. My name is Abena Owusu Nyamekye. The newsroom will return shortly after this break.
It sounds weird, it's unthinkable, but I've become fond of idiots.
Idiots are nuisance and they are very annoying.
I'm still baffled about what you saw. Was you really the donkey's ghost?
Senna, it is your bullseye.